You wanna die, you little bitch? Get out here so I can smash your face in. Look at this exact moment. Look at the sheer terror in that 3-year-old boy's eyes in the back seat. Look at the heavy steel baseball bat, completely shattered through the reinforced windshield, stopping just inches away from a young mother's face. You can almost feel the suffocating panic, right? The absolute nightmare of being trapped in a metal box while a raging lunatic tries to murder you and your baby over absolutely nothing. But look closer at the mother. She isn't crying. She isn't begging for her life. In fact, there is a dead, ice-cold calmness in her eyes that should have sent shivers down that tattooed monster's spine. He picked the wrong car. He picked the absolute worst woman on the face of the planet to terrorize today. If you believe no piece of trash has the right to threaten the safety of an innocent child, type "justice is served" down in the comments right now as a declaration. Do it right now. And make sure you hit that subscribe button, because you are going to want a front row seat to see how this mother completely dismantles this guy's entire miserable life. Let's rewind the clock exactly 15 minutes. It was a beautiful, crisp Tuesday morning on Interstate 95. The sun was shining, traffic was light. Inside a sleek black Tesla, a 32-year-old mother was humming along to a soft lullaby playing on the stereo. Her 3-year-old son was sound asleep in his car seat in the back. It was the picture of perfect, peaceful suburban life. She was a woman who respected the rules. She drove exactly the speed limit. She kept a safe distance. But peace is a very fragile thing, especially when you share the road with people who think the world owes them something. In the rearview mirror, a massive, lifted, matte black Dodge Ram pickup truck appeared out of nowhere. It wasn't just driving, it was hunting. The truck was violently swerving across 3 lanes of traffic without using a single turn signal. It was riding the bumpers of smaller sedans, flashing its blinding high beams, aggressively bullying anyone who dared to exist in its path. Behind the wheel was a heavily tattooed, muscular guy in his late 30s. He had on designer sunglasses, a thick gold chain, and a permanent sneer of arrogant disgust plastered across his face. He drove like he owned the asphalt. He drove like the laws of physics and the laws of society simply did not apply to him. He was the apex predator of the highway, and everyone else was just an obstacle in his way. The mother noticed him in her mirror and responsibly clicked her blinker, smoothly merging into the middle lane to give this raging maniac a wide berth. She just wanted to protect her child. She wanted zero trouble. But trouble doesn't care about your intentions. As they approached a major intersection just off the highway exit, the traffic light turned solid red. The mother gently applied her brakes, bringing her Tesla to a smooth, complete stop behind the white line. But the black Dodge Ram didn't slow down. Instead, the engine roared with a deafening, obnoxious growl as the driver slammed on the gas. He blindly swerved into the turning lane, trying to blow straight through the red light at 60 miles per hour. At that exact second, a yellow school bus was entering the intersection from the right, possessing the clear right-of-way. It was a split second away from a catastrophic, multi-casualty disaster. Pure parental instinct kicked in. The mother slammed her hand down on the center of her steering wheel. A long, loud, piercing honk echoed across the intersection. It was a warning. A desperate plea to stop a tragedy. The sudden noise startled the guy in the truck. He slammed on his brakes, the heavy tires screeching and smoking against the pavement, skidding to a violent halt mere inches from the side of the school bus. Disaster was averted. Lives were saved. You would think the man would take a deep breath, count his blessings, and feel a wave of relief. You would think he might even feel a shred of embarrassment for driving like an absolute reckless idiot. But that is not how the mind of an arrogant, entitled bully works. In his twisted, toxic reality, he wasn't the bad guy who almost killed a bus full of kids. In his mind, the mother in the Tesla had disrespected him. She had dared to honk at him. She had dared to challenge his authority on the road. His fragile, pathetic ego shattered into a million pieces. Through his open window, he shot a glare of pure, unadulterated venom at the mother. His face turned beet red. The veins in his thick neck bulged. He threw the heavy truck into reverse, the transmission grinding loudly, and aggressively backed up right next to her Tesla. The peaceful morning was officially over. The hunt was back on, and now it was personal. When the light turned green, the mother tried to accelerate smoothly, trying to put distance between herself and the lunatic, but the Dodge Ram was right there. He aggressively swerved into her lane, forcing her to violently jerk the steering wheel to the right to avoid a collision. Her heart hammered in her chest. In the back seat, the sudden swerve woke her 3-year-old son, who started whimpering in confusion. The truck accelerated, cutting sharply in front of the Tesla, and then the driver did the unthinkable. He slammed on his brakes. A hard, malicious brake check on a busy road. The mother gasped, her foot pressing the brake pedal all the way to the floor. The Tesla's anti-lock brakes stuttered, the tires chirping as the car stopped just a hair away from the truck's massive steel bumper. This wasn't just road rage anymore. This was a calculated, predatory assault. He was using a 3-ton piece of machinery as a deadly weapon to terrorize a woman and a child. He didn't just brake check her once. As she desperately tried to change lanes to escape, the truck mirrored her every move. He swerved left when she went left. He blocked her when she went right. He was playing a sick, twisted game of cat and mouse, feeding off the power trip of controlling her every movement. He rolled down his window and started screaming obscenities, flipping her off with a manic, unhinged look in his eyes. The mother kept her windows rolled up tight, the glass separating her from the madness outside. She reached back blindly, her trembling hand gently touching her son's little leg to comfort him. "Mommy's got you, baby," she whispered, her voice remarkably steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Mommy's right here." But the man in the truck wasn't satisfied with just scaring her. He wanted absolute submission. He wanted her to pull over so he could assert his physical dominance. He aggressively steered his heavy truck into the side of her lane, the massive tires crossing the white dotted line, physically pushing the smaller Tesla toward the concrete shoulder. It was either get hit or pull over. With no other option, and prioritizing her baby's safety above all else, she guided the car onto the gravel shoulder of the deserted stretch of road. The truck violently swerved in front of her, cutting off any chance of escape, and threw it into park. The dust hadn't even settled before his door flew open. A mountain of a man stepped out of the truck. He was easily 6'4", pushing 250 pounds of pure, steroid-fueled rage. He didn't just walk toward her car, he stomped. Every step was heavy, deliberate, and dripping with aggressive intent. In his massive right hand, he was gripping a solid aluminum baseball bat. The mother's heart skipped a beat, but her mind instantly shifted into survival mode. She didn't reach for her phone to record him. She didn't try to roll down the window to reason with a madman. She quickly reached up and pressed a small, unassuming icon on her Tesla's massive center touchscreen. Instantly, the car's advanced security system activated. 8 high-definition cameras, strategically positioned all around the vehicle, silently powered on. They were capturing every single angle in crystal clear, 4K resolution. They were recording the audio. They were tracking his license plate. They were documenting every tiny twitch of a muscle on his infuriated face. He marched right up to her driver's side window and slammed his heavy fist against the glass. "Open this damn door, you stupid, entitled bitch," he roared. His voice was so loud, so violently explosive, that it actually muffled the sound of the traffic whizzing by on the highway. In the back seat, the little boy let out a blood-curdling scream. He was terrified. He didn't understand what was happening, only that a monster was trying to get to his mommy. The man didn't even flinch at the sound of the crying child. In fact, it seemed to fuel his twisted ego even more. "You think you can just honk at me?" he screamed, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. "You think because you drive this fancy little electric toy, you're better than me?" He spat a massive wad of saliva right onto her window. "I'll show you who owns this road, you pathetic, stuck-up piece of trash." He took 2 steps back. He raised the aluminum baseball bat high above his head, and with every ounce of his massive upper body strength, he swung it down directly onto her front windshield. Crack! The sound was deafening. The heavy reinforced glass didn't shatter into a million pieces thanks to the safety lamination, but it instantly spiderwebbed into a massive, blinding crater right in front of her face. Tiny shards of glass sprinkled down onto the dashboard. The little boy in the back was hyperventilating now, completely hysterical. The mother didn't scream. She didn't cover her face. She just sat there, her hands gripping the steering wheel tight, her eyes locked dead onto his. She was analyzing him. She was mentally categorizing every single felony he was committing in real time. See, this is what psychologists call intermittent explosive disorder. It's a behavioral disorder characterized by explosive outbursts of anger and violence, often to the point of blind rage, which are completely disproportionate to the situation at hand. People like him walk around like ticking time bombs, just waiting for the slightest inconvenience to justify unleashing their pathetic insecurities onto innocent people. They feed on fear. They crave the power of seeing their victims cower and beg. But this mother wasn't cowering, and she certainly wasn't begging. The man swung the bat a second time. Smash! Another massive crater formed on the passenger side of the windshield. "You want to die, you little bitch," he yelled again, out of breath now, his chest heaving. "Get out here so I can smash your face in." This is the exact moment we saw at the very beginning of the video. This is the pinnacle of his arrogant, toxic power trip. He truly believed he had won. He believed he had asserted his dominance and put this woman in her place. If you are watching this, and your blood is boiling at the sheer audacity of this monster, type "justice is served" in the comments right now. Do it, because what this pathetic excuse for a man didn't know was that he had just signed his own death warrant. He didn't know that the woman sitting behind that shattered glass wasn't just a terrified suburban housewife. She was the Honorable Judge Sarah H. Miller. She was one of the most ruthless, unyielding, and highly respected Supreme Criminal Court judges in the entire state. She had spent the last 12 years of her life putting away gang leaders, murderers, and violent predators who were 10 times tougher than this pathetic road-raging bully. And he had just handed her a perfectly wrapped, high-definition, multi-angle confession to multiple violent felonies. He gave the shattered windshield one last menacing tap with the tip of his bat. He let out a disgusting, triumphant laugh, turned his back on the terrified family, and strutted back to his massive truck. He climbed in, revved the engine loud enough to shake the ground, and sped off down the shoulder, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and gravel. He was probably smiling. He probably thought he was going to go home, crack open a cold beer, and boast to his buddies about how he put some rich lady in her place today. But Judge Miller just calmly took a deep breath. She turned around, unbuckled her crying son, and pulled him into her lap, burying his wet face in her shoulder. "It's okay, sweetie," she whispered, her voice finally cracking just a little bit with maternal emotion. "Mommy's got you. The bad man is gone." She held him tight for a long moment until his breathing steadied. Then, she reached for her phone. She didn't call 911. She didn't need a dispatcher. She scrolled through her contacts and tapped the private, direct cell phone number of the city's chief of police. It rang twice. "Chief," she said, her voice completely devoid of emotion. "It's Judge Miller. I need you to send a unit to my location right now. I've just been assaulted with a deadly weapon. I have the perpetrator's license plate, full facial recognition, and crystal clear audio of him threatening to murder me and my son. I want him found, and I want a no-knock warrant executed tonight." She hung up the phone. She didn't need to yell. She didn't need to post a crying video on social media. She just let the heavy, inescapable wheels of the justice system start turning. Now, let's fast forward to 2 o'clock in the morning. The tattooed man is fast asleep in his messy, cramped apartment. He's probably dreaming about how incredibly tough and masculine he is. He has absolutely no idea that a heavily armed SWAT team is currently stacking up outside his front door. These guys don't knock politely. They don't ask for permission. Boom. A heavy steel battering ram completely obliterates the deadbolt. The wooden door flies off its hinges, splintering into pieces as 10 heavily armored officers flood into the living room. Flashbangs go off, blinding white light and deafening noise filling the tiny space. "Police, get on the ground," Show me your hands right now. The man jolts awake, completely disoriented and absolutely terrified. The fearless, aggressive monster from the highway is completely gone. In his place is a pathetic, trembling coward wearing nothing but stained boxer shorts, screaming in high-pitched terror as a laser sight is pointed directly at his chest. They rip him out of bed. They slam him face first onto the hardwood floor, zip-tying his hands behind his back so tight it cuts off his circulation. He's crying now. Actual, pathetic tears streaming down his face as his neighbors peek out of their doors, watching the big tough guy get dragged down the hallway like a sack of garbage. He spends the rest of the night shivering in a cold, concrete holding cell, wondering how a simple road rage incident escalated into a full-blown tactical raid. But the real nightmare hasn't even started yet. The next morning, at 9 a.m. sharp, he is chained up and led into the central courtroom for his arraignment. He is bruised, exhausted, and desperately trying to put on a brave face for his public defender. He probably thinks he can plea bargain his way out of this. Maybe claim it was a moment of temporary insanity, pay a fine, and walk away. That's what bullies always think. They think the rules will bend for them if they just whine loud enough. The heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom swing open. All rise for the Honorable Judge Sarah Miller, the bailiff booms. The man stands up, the heavy chains around his waist clinking together. He lazily looks up toward the judge's bench. And then, his entire world stops spinning. His heart literally drops into his stomach. The color completely drains from his face, leaving him looking like a sick, pale ghost. Walking up the steps to the high wooden bench, dressed in a flowing black judicial robe, is the exact same woman he tried to kill yesterday. She doesn't look terrified anymore. She looks like a god of vengeance. Judge Miller sits down, slowly puts on her reading glasses, and looks directly down at him. The silence in the courtroom is absolutely suffocating. You could hear a pin drop. The man's knees actually buckle. He has to grab the wooden railing just to keep from collapsing onto the floor. He opens his mouth to speak, to apologize, to beg for his miserable life, but no words come out. He is completely paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of his own stupidity. Well, Judge Miller finally says, her voice echoing through the silent room like a death knell. If it isn't the apex predator of Interstate 95, I must say, you look significantly less intimidating without your little baseball bat. The public defender tries to intervene, stammering about a conflict of interest, but Judge Miller holds up a single finger, silencing him instantly. "Oh, don't worry, counselor," she says, a terrifyingly calm smile spreading across her face. "I am recusing myself from presiding over this trial. Because I am the star witness." She presses a button on her desk, and the massive flat-screen television on the courtroom wall flickers to life. It's the Tesla camera footage. It plays in glorious, undeniable 4K resolution. The entire courtroom watches as this grown man violently smashes the windshield, screaming racial slurs and death threats, while a 3-year-old child shrieks in absolute terror in the background. The jury box is empty today, but the gallery is full of other lawyers, police officers, and court staff. Every single pair of eyes in that room turns to look at the man with absolute, unadulterated disgust. He is thoroughly, completely, and publicly destroyed. Judge Miller leans forward, folding her hands on the desk. The district attorney has informed me that due to the overwhelming, undeniable digital evidence, they will be denying any possibility of a plea deal. You are being charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, 1 count of reckless endangerment of a minor, and felony destruction of property. The recommended sentence is 5 years in a maximum security state penitentiary. No parole. No early release for good behavior. The man drops to his knees. He starts sobbing uncontrollably, begging the woman he terrorized just 24 hours ago for mercy. But mercy is reserved for human beings, not monsters who hunt mothers and children for sport. Bail is denied, she states clearly. "Take this piece of trash out of my courtroom." The bailiffs practically drag him out by his armpits as he wails like a child. It is the ultimate, most satisfying display of instant karma you will ever see in your entire life. But let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. Let's talk about the uncomfortable truth. What if she wasn't a Supreme Court judge? What if she was just a normal, single mother working 2 jobs to make ends meet, driving an old, beat-up Honda Civic without 8 high-definition cameras? Would that monster have been arrested in the middle of the night? Would the chief of police have answered her call? Or would she have been just another ignored victim, left to pay for a shattered windshield while a violent psychopath continued to roam the streets unchecked? This brings us to a very dark reality about how the world actually works. If you are watching this, and you know deep down that the system only works for those who have the power to enforce it, I want you to go to the comments right now and type "Justice is served." Do it, not just to celebrate this one victory, but as a promise that you will never turn a blind eye when you see the weak being crushed by the arrogant. We have to protect each other, because sometimes there isn't a judge sitting behind that broken glass. Hit that subscribe button right now if you stand against the bullies of this world. And I will see you in the next video.